to the BizBlend podcast, listeners, where real conversations meet real business challenges. I'm your host, Sana, and today in this episode, we are not talking about making safe career pivots or chasing the next promotion. We are talking about true reinvention. My guest is Rachel Spekman, a veteran coach, former brand marketer, startup mentor, and therapist who helps high achieving, high performing women leave high paying but soul sucking careers for work that actually aligns with their values and makes them real money. Now, if you think that career shifts are just about moving laterally or maybe playing it safe, think again. This conversation is about alternatives, non-conformity, and deeply honest questions every ambitious woman needs to ask herself. So, Rachel, welcome to BizBlend, and I'm really honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that powerful introduction. I'm really, really happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, Rachel. Okay, let's quickly get to the false trade-off challenge. Because many women, Rachel, believe that they have to choose between a soul-aligned career and strong income, but you argue that's a false trade-off. So I am personally very curious to know, where does that belief system come from, and why is it so deeply ingrained in high performers?
Ooh. Um, so I wanna start with I do not believe that you have to leave your career. Um, that is not one of the things that I promote or teach, but I do believe that we have to investigate what it is that's causing us to be deeply unhappy. If we are unhappy, deeply soul drained, and really start to dig deep about how we got to this moment,
Mhm.
uh, what is working for us, what isn't. Maybe it's staying, but with a different internal purpose or an internal compass, I call it. Maybe it's making a pivot within, or maybe it's making a radical pivot altogether. Um, Really, at the end of the day, what I am working with women, and I work with several men on as well. I don't
Mhm.
disclude men, but I focus on women.
Mhm.
Is reclaiming your joy, reclaiming your soul, because very often, as you said, the more senior we get, the more we feel we have to choose between a high income and doing the things that we most enjoy doing. And
Mhm.
there is a theory in therapy that I use often, which is called both and, which is that you can have both and. You can have a soul aligned career and make good money. It's about thinking creatively. And what I do is help people dig deep into their skill set, their network, how they're positioning themselves, um, to really align with what are the things that light me up and that are going to pay me well, and how do I go find them?
Hmm. Understood. Understood. It's not.
And then very often those things start finding them as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. So it's not something like, that like downgrading or just maybe for the sake of that peace and flexibility. I'm downgrading or I'm compromising with my ambitions or my financial upliftment. So I absolutely understand that, especially for those this is more relevant who have been told that you can't have it all. So, Rachel, what patterns do you see when, especially women, actually break that narrative? In fact, it can be for men as well.
Yeah. Well, I think so many people who I work with are having what we call an asymmetrical experience. So that means that professionally on LinkedIn, in the corporate boardroom, they are presenting themselves, the facts, the figures, whatever they're doing in a very specific, polished way, and they're probably doing a great job doing it. And internally, they are at a breaking point, saying, "This is not for me. I am so stuck. I don't care about these numbers, care about this industry. Um, and at a certain point, we can withstand a lot of things, but it can become uncomfortable to feel very, very asymmetrical. I call it like a lopsided seesaw. So, to answer your question about the patterns, first, it's recognizing this is not okay. This is not a sustainable way to live. Presenting a certain way and then crying in the bathroom, or really feeling just this endless debt to almost enslavement, if you will, to the golden handcuffs, we often call it. Um, and that's also because when you become accustomed to a very high income, um, we all become accustomed to whatever our income is. And then all of a sudden you realize you've kind of had this lifestyle creep. And so I actually help a lot of people with, okay, well, what income do you need to live off of? I'm not a financial planner. I recommend everybody works with a financial planner. But how can you be creative in thinking, um, okay, well, I want to have a life that is more meaningful and I need to make good money. What does that actually look like? What number does that look like? What are the things that I enjoy spending on versus just spend on autopilot? What are the things that my family needs? So there's a lot of pattern recognition, and I would call it kind of waking up to what you need versus what you want versus what society says that you want and need. Of course, we all, if anybody knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if you don't, I recommend you Google it. But we all have very basic needs, and those need to be met. And then we have higher up needs and community and self love and self actualization. Many people I work with have almost every basic need met, of course, which is very fortunate, as we know a lot of the world doesn't. It's that they almost, the self-actualization piece feels very hard because they don't enjoy what they're doing for 95% of their week.
Hmm. So does that mean, Rachel, this entire concept of that I don't have to compromise on my, um, ambitions just to be in that zone of loving what I'm doing, is it more like coming from a privilege point of view? Maybe it's not relevant for someone who still have so many bindings and responsibilities to fulfill that they don't even can afford to have that option of thinking about it.
Mhm. Well, I mean, everyone has their constraints, and I wanna be really mindful. I help people take calculated risks, so I never recommend anybody, unless they're having a major mental health crisis, and then we talk about could they take a short-term leave, or everyone, needs sources of capital and income, and so I just wanna be really mindful of that I am helping people to make more informed choices for themselves, uh, not to jump off of a cliff with no plan, but really it's to mindfully step in a direction, or really reclaim their power. And very often that's reclaiming their narrative, their voice, um, saying, I'm really good at this thing that maybe this job doesn't recognize, or this job does recognize, but it minimizes, and I want to be doing more of it. Uh, Very often people will find me when they're in either a toxic work environment, or they feel like they're talked over in rooms and they're like, my voice matters. I need to be somewhere. So I
Mhm.
help people with what I call a small, medium, or large change. And we do a lot of work to identify what kind of change do you need right now? Do you need a small kind of uplift change? Um, just to kind of get yourself back online, back on track. Many people I work with say like the goal is to kind of be themselves again. Um, or many people have children and they said, "Yeah, my child is so joyful at school and I'm so happy for them. I want to be as joyful if possible when I go to work." Of course, knowing that work can be a place of joy or at least a place of meaning. And that really is possible. I coach everybody to say that we should be 80% happy at our job.
Mm.
Uh, and not 100%, that would be nice. And I have everybody start with what percent are they at and why. And I ask people, one other thing I'll say is that I think about our time in sort of as like a three-pillared stool. So who
Okay.
there are three pieces to this there are three legs to the stool, right? That take up 99% of our time. Like you and I are talking, but we're not in each other's ongoing time, right? Or life. And so those three are where you live, your community, your home. Do you enjoy living there? Then there's who you live with, your partner, your family, your roommates, what your day-to-day life. And then there's what you're doing professionally. That is often taking up, unless you're, independently wealthy, and even still, people want purpose and meaning, um, what you're doing with your time. And
Mm.
if most people are in a marriage that's not working, or they're in a home that's falling apart, they're saying, I'm not gonna stand for this. But we do withstand it for our jobs. Um, so, I help people say that that's actually not okay, and I'm gonna get my that leg of my time back, which is really gonna uplift the rest of my life. And it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it is, but it definitely needs time and the right guidance.
Mhm.
And Rachel, uh, that's what exactly it is. You emphasize not just doing a lateral move or a basic pivot. Um, why do you think this safe career change model it often leaves people just as stuck? Only new roles. And how do we begin with? I mean, what creativity can we bring into this?
Mhm. So, I'll give the listeners a few challenge assignments, if any of this is resonating with you, besides, hopefully scheduling a call with me or somebody that you trust to talk to about careers. I help people reverse engineer the job search.
Okay.
So, um, what I mean by that, what happens is most people, a few things kind of classically happen, right? The first is we follow our family, we follow the people around us for careers. And sometimes those people aren't that happy in their careers, but we follow them because that's the model. And so I help people, I would invite everyone to think about who are the 5 people that that seem to light up when they talk about work. What are they doing? How are they managing their time? Are they working for themselves? Are they working for a big company? How did they get there? Who are those 5 people? And how do you get closer to those 5 people? Um, Second thing is take a look at your job, and whether it's your job description or your day to day, and do what I call a job audit. Let's say I run one-on-one meetings, and I do that 20% of my day. I enjoy that 1% of the time. Okay, that is a very low enjoyment rate for something that's taking up a good percent of my time.
Hmm.
Go through each item of your day or the major areas and really ask yourself, what is my percent enjoyment? What would I want it to be? And how do I start to make even just naming the enjoyment level, or how do I start to make moves in that direction? I don't really like one-on-one meetings. Huh, I wonder if somebody I work with who loves one-on-one meetings could do more of those. I really love writing blog posts. I wonder if I can pitch myself to write more blog posts. So that's how we start to really align our skills and interests with our current workplace. And so those are some of the things I would advise people, really early on to start thinking about, because it's momentum.
Yeah.
Um, and when you're, I talk with some clients when you're lying on the floor. Just the idea of getting up feels exhausting. But once you get up, you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm up. I could go for a little walk. Okay, I could
Yeah.
maybe do this, right?" But we have to get up from the floor, whatever the floor is for us. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Hmm.
And change is very, very hard. I think that's where my psychology background really comes in, because I focus a lot on models of change behavior, stages of change behavior. Um, and we really get to dig deep around what is helping you create this change, what's the fear, what's the self-doubt, even what are the messages you heard from childhood around change, around job enjoyment, around security. So that's sort of where the therapy really can meet the career coaching strategies. And I say do all of this before, this, yes, if you're unhappy, absolutely be applying to jobs. But be really mindful. Another thing people can do is, let's say you're applying to jobs, look at the job description, and I say, start compiling your favorite things from each job that you're applying to. Then you're creating your own dream job.
Mm, that's a good one. That's a good one, Rachel.
Thanks.
That's a good one. And then I have so many interesting, you know, perspectives about change because
Mm,
um, until the time I got into so many conversations through podcasting with guests around the psychology of change, I used to
mm,
think that I something is wrong with me that I my brain cannot accept even the idea of changing my daily routine. You know,
mhm,
until unless I don't do those activities, I feel as if something has been missing this entire
mm,
day and it doesn't set me in the right mood. And then the after effects of that particular mood gets to affect the next coming days. Then may not feel like getting out of bed, going to office, taking a shower, getting ready, having my breakfast. It's like a ripple effect. But this is psychology. I mean, our brains are designed that it will resist change, and that's where
It,
we try to procrastinate.
it's called the downward spiral, right? And so we have this downward spiral. Another thing I would really I kind of committed to this myself, so I'm living proof of this, is start every morning off, and I'm not saying you have to get up at 4 in the morning and do 1,000 workouts or push-ups, but start the morning off with 5 to 10 minutes of mindset or some kind of motivation.
Mm.
It will just, it might sound like verbal fodder or woo-woo or whatever you wanna call it. The more you listen to that, if it's almost like if you imagine, you're going on to a big if s people played sports, I'm a big athlete. If you go onto the field and your coach says, "You're gonna lose, you're gonna lose, you're not gonna have a good game."
Okay.
But if your coach and your captain and the whole, stadium is like, "You got this, you're gonna win, it's amazing." We have to create that for ourselves as adults. We have to create that as internally, and it's a very private experience. Um, YouTube has some phenomenal channels around this, and, and it can just be a really nice, nobody needs to know you're doing it. I like to do it while I'm stretching in the morning because then I'm kind of engaging my body in this positive messaging, and again, I'm an athlete. So, it's the mindset, because especially when we get into, "Oh, we're stuck and change is hard," and it is hard. Um, but we have to give ourselves permission to not be perfect in the change, but to really have the confidence. Um, I was with a friend last night. She's like almost 50 and she's about to make a big change. And she said, I figured out almost everything in my life to date. Right now, I think I'll just keep figuring it out. So it's kind of meeting the fear where it's at, and then of course making a calculated risk around the change.
Mm, I agree.
And by calculated risk, I mean financially calculated, having a network, having credibility. Um, I did not go right into coaching. I wanted to become a therapist. I wanted to understand the strategies of psychology and really marrying those two together. So for each person, if you want to make a change, it's nuanced.
It's true. That's true. Wonderful, wonderful. Rachel, so before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what would be the best way?
Okay. So my website is Rachel Spekman, Spekman.com. And my company is called Made for More Coaching. And it's all about helping people be more soul aligned, be more soul intentional in their careers, be very practical in making these decisions, be very, very strategic. And I would love to connect with you there. That's my calendar link is there. I have a free training on my website. So again, it's Rachel Spekman, Spekman.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. Rachel, thank you. Thank you so much because this has been personally quite a fruitful discussion for me as well. Some of golden tips that I've gotten from you, I'm definitely going to take away from them myself, and I hope for all the listeners as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And, you know, I'll end with one thing. I have to practice what I preach. I'm constantly figuring out as I evolve and grow my own business, what do I enjoy doing? What do I not enjoy doing? And that's kind of how I ended up on the podcast. I was like, I love talking to people. I don't love certain sales navigator or LinkedIn. I said, that is a way to grow your business, but that's not my way. For somebody else, they might love that chase. So we have to always be investigating ourselves as we're becoming more and more awake to what inspires us professionally and personally.
True, true. That's true. And what may work for you may not work for me. So that's always
Exactly, but we have to listen to it if it's working and not just keep, bang head here, as I say.
exactly. But that doesn't mean outrightly we say that no, that's wrong or that's not a good option. But we can learn from all of them.
Exactly. The last thing I'll say is, and I say it all the time to myself, progress over perfection, progress over perfection.
Yeah, that's a wonderful one, Rachel.
Yeah.
Hey, so to all the listeners, that was Rachel Speckman, and I think many of you are going to be replaying parts of this episode over the next few days. I hope so. Because reinvention is not about playing small or settling, it is about stepping into alignment without sacrificing your earning power. As always, if today's conversation sparked something for you, please make sure to connect with Rachel. Refer to the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform and also share it with someone else who needs to hear this. And it has been BizBlend, where real business conversations happen. And this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.